Okay, so I think it's time to start, but everybody is not here yet as usual. So, um, you know what? We'll get started. If they come late, then they come late. So, all right. So last class we started talking about this idea of a. Can everybody hear me? One or two of you can just unmute yourself and quickly say yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One more. Anybody else? You're able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Yes, sure, sir.
All right. Thanks. So we spoke about this idea of a water budget, right? So what I've done here is I've drawn some random boundary. We'll talk about what this boundary means, but for now, just assume that it is some random boundary that we are looking at, and we are interested in finding out the water budget for this area. Okay, so now this area uh, maybe has a river that runs down the middle and then discharges out at this point. So this is the outlet. Okay, so maybe I'll call this point. I'll call it the. So this point is the outlet. Okay, so through the outlet of that area, the stream is discharging water out of this area. Okay, so then I'm looking at the different sources of water that bring water into this area. The most important among them is precipitation, P, capital P. So that's the component, or that's the process that's bringing water into this well-defined area that I have. Okay, so that is P. Now I'm trying to understand what are all the processes that take water out of this area, right? So evaporation is one of the processes that is taking water out of this area. If there are trees and vegetation in this area, then there'll also be transpiration. That's capital T, right? So P is precipitation, minus E, which is evaporation. So in this particular area that I've drawn a couple of lakes. This is lake one. Okay, so this is a lake. This is another lake, right? So you can have evaporation from the lake surface, and then T is transpiration if there's a vegetation and crops, trees, whatever it may be in this area. The leaves of those of that vegetation will be transpiring water out. So that is capital T. So P minus E minus T. All of E and T are taking water out of this area. P is bringing water into this area. It's fairly obvious. And R is the runoff that is going out of this area through this outlet in the form of stream flow. Okay. So if these are all the processes that we are interested in, okay, if these are the only processes that we are able to capture, then the equation will look like this. If there are more processes, you will have to include those, right? If there are more processes, you will have to include them. But if you don't have other processes in this particular area, then the equation will look something like this. P minus E minus T minus R, which is the runoff that's leaving, equal to delta S. Now, what is this delta S? Delta S is the change in the storage in this area. Okay. So delta S is change in storage. Okay. Now, this equation, let us say I'm writing it for one day. Okay. So today is the 24th of August. If I take my duration for which I'm writing this equation, I take 12 midnight to 12 midnight tonight, right? So from midnight of August 23rd midnight to August 24th midnight. If that is my duration, then I look at all the precipitation that falls between midnight and midnight. That will be my capital P. All the evaporation that happens between midnight and midnight, that will be capital E. All the transpiration and so on. So the left hand side is easy. You just account for all those precipitation, evaporation, transpiration, and runoff between these two times. Delta S, you'll have to be a little bit careful. Okay, delta S could be many things. What are the processes by which storage can change inside this area, right? So as I said, you have these lakes inside this area, correct? So now these lakes, the water level in the lakes could change. That would be a change in storage inside this area. That could be one kind of change in storage. You could also have the soil moisture, right? Between 12 midnight from last night and 12 midnight tonight, the soil moisture inside this area could have changed, right? So what is soil moisture? It is the water that is retained in the soil. Okay, so if yesterday the soil moisture was 5% on average in this area, and today it's 10%, then the soil moisture has 5% of the that change that you're seeing. That is the change in storage that is stored inside this area, right? So that could be another form of storage. And the last form of storage could be the groundwater levels, right? So the groundwater levels at 12 midnight yesterday could have been, let us say, at some level. If today that groundwater level has changed, if it is increased or decreased, if it is increased, that means groundwater storage has increased. If it is decreased, that means groundwater storage has decreased. Okay. So those are all the different processes that you're looking at, and that is how you will account for this change in storage. So all I'm trying to say is, maybe I'll go to the next slide and write there. This delta S, change in storage, it could be surface water storage. Okay, it could also be soil moisture. Okay, it could also be groundwater storage. All right. And
Hello. So can you
yes, any questions?
so actually, can you go to the
Can you
previous
speak a little bit louder?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, so in the water budget, like the delta S, you said is the change in storage, right?
Yes.
So, like according to the formula which you gave, like precipitation minus evaporation minus T minus R,
Yeah.
but evaporation is already going out, so it should be like why it should be like precipitation is added. Why is evaporation subtracted? It should be added, no?
Evaporation is water that is going out, right? So if I
Yeah.
imagine I have a lake, right?
Yes.
So imagine between 12 midnight yesterday and 12 midnight today, there is no rainfall, but the sun is shining. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you are writing this water balance for the lake, imagine,
Okay.
okay, nothing has come in, but something has gone out. Will the water level in the lake change? Will it increase or
Yes.
decrease?
Water level will decrease.
Water level will decrease, so that delta S will be negative.
Okay. Okay. I get it.
You got it?
Yeah.
So evaporation is water that is going out of this area. Now, when I say this area that I'm talking about is a land surface. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Of course, the evaporation goes out and it remains in the atmosphere,
Hmm.
right? So if you write it for the atmosphere, then you'll have to look at the wind that is taking the moisture out. Then it becomes a slightly different process. Okay. So we are not interested in that. We are only interested. Okay. Let me say it a little bit more carefully. This. Okay. So now this is where we have to define this area. This area that I've drawn. Okay. This boundary that I've drawn. Typically, this is called the catchment. Catchment. If you read the news, so now um, I mean, those of you from Andhra who might know this, the Sri Sailam reservoir, 10 of the gates have been opened up. If you check out any of the newspapers today, you will see a photo which shows the water gushing out of the reservoir because flow is coming into the reservoir. Okay. And if you don't open the gates, then the reservoir will just get completely filled. So you have to open the gates and let out some of the water because more water is coming in. So you don't want the reservoir to completely get submerged, right? So you open the gates and let out the water. So it's basically, uh, you know, what you're doing is you're controlling the water level inside that reservoir because a lot of water is coming in. If you let out some water, then the water level in the reservoir will remain more or less stable, or it won't become unstable in terms of structural stability of the reservoir and so on. Okay. But the thing is, the area that contributes water to this reservoir, it could be any reservoir, right? I mean, I'm just talking about Sri Sailam reservoir because I just saw it in the newspaper this morning. Okay, it could be the Nagarjuna Sagar in Hyderabad. It could be the Sardar Sarovar. Where is the Sardar Sarovar?
Gujarat.
Which river is it on? Ajay, which river is the Sardar Sarovar on?
Nirmal.
Narmada,
Narmada.
right? So anyway, so this Narmada, I mean, in this context, at least now at this time, if you read the newspaper every day, there is some at least 2 or 3 articles about either rains or floods or agriculture, which is of course connected to water, right? If you just open the newspaper and go through the pages, you will find at least 2 or 3 articles somehow connected to water, right? I mean, directly connected to water. Everything is indirectly connected to water, but directly connected to water, you will see something. You'll in some portion it says, the floods have destroyed crops. In some places, it's destroyed crops. In another, if you turn the next page, it will say, oh, but in so and so district in Rajasthan, the monsoon has not arrived, and that has destroyed the crops. The drought has destroyed crops, right? So in one part of the country, a flood is destroying crops. The other part of the country, a drought is destroying crops. Or you will see, now you might have all heard about this JEE exam and all that, and how people are protesting that they don't want to write the exam because there's floods in Bihar, there's floods in Assam, there's floods in Karnataka, right? So water is everywhere. If you read the news, and then you try to connect the links with what we are going to learn in this class, okay, you'll find a lot of material that can help you understand the world. Okay, this is all about the way water impacts our lives. Okay, so all of this has a direct impact on our lives. All right, so anyway, let me come back to this. I use this word catchment over here. Okay, so catchment, so for any reservoir will have its catchment area. Okay, have you heard that phrase, catchment area? If you read the newspaper, I strongly suggest, I've said this multiple times, I'll say it again, please read the newspaper. This is not about getting an engineering degree and leaving this institute. At the end of the day, you have to be useful, contributing members of society. And without understanding society, you cannot contribute to society. And without reading the newspaper, there's no way you can understand society. It
Sir,
doesn't
there
matter.
is
Yes.
one more way. News channels.
What is that?
News channels.
Yeah, news channels don't. Okay, don't get me started on news channels. Even newspapers, you have to be careful which newspapers you read, because not all newspapers are equally good. Okay, some of the good newspapers, if you manage to read them, then you will get a reasonably good idea of what is going on in the world. But of course, these things are relatively non-political issues, so you should be able to people will report that if there's a flood, people will report there's a flood. News channels, they just show you things. Okay, reading is important. Please read the newspaper. Even if you read it online, it's okay. Just go online. All the newspapers are available online. Times of India, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, The Hindu, everything is available online. You just go online and read it. Okay, all right. So if you read any of those articles, it will say there was a lot of rain in the catchment areas, and so the reservoir is full. Okay, so that's what it will say. There was a lot of rain in the catchment area, and so the reservoir has become full. Okay, so this catchment area is basically the area that contributes water to the reservoir. Okay, so if I build a reservoir at a particular point, so imagine this in this figure that I've drawn over here. Imagine I construct a reservoir or a dam over here. Okay, imagine I construct a dam over here. Okay, now this dam is the area that contributes water to this dam is this entire blue random area that I've drawn. That is the catchment area that contributes water to this dam, right? So the catchment area is the area that catches water. Okay, so that's why it's called catchment area. The area that catches water, which you can store in your dam, that's typically called the catchment area. All right. So whenever we write a water budget, typically we write it for a catchment area. But you can write the water budget for anything, right? You can write your water budget for a city. You can write the water budget for your building, right? So if you most of your buildings, depending on where you live, will have some kind of a rainwater harvesting system, right? So especially if you live in a city, your building will most likely have a rainwater harvesting system. In the village, the rainwater harvesting system is your well in the back of your building. If you see, in my village, our house used to have a well in the back. Okay, and whatever rain fell inside our house, it would be directed towards the well. So it would all go into the well, and then we would take the water out of the well and use it. Right. In the cities, you will have a rainwater harvesting system, which will capture all the water that falls on your roof, and it will put it inside the tank, the underground sump. Right. So so the catchment area for your underground sump is your terrace. You understand what I'm saying? If you think of your underground sump as a reservoir, the catchment area for that reservoir is your terrace, because the terrace captures all that water and directs it to the underground sump, right? So you can think of it that way also. So in any case, so you can write this water budget for a city, you can write it for a building, you can write it for a state, you can write it for a country. Okay, so there's no limit. You can write it for the whole world. For the whole world, you can write a water budget equation. Okay, so that is one thing. That is as far as the spatial extent of your water budget equation is. The other thing is about the time duration for which you write the water budget equation. You can write it for an hour, for a day, for a week, for a month, and so on, for a year, for a decade, whatever it is, right? So there's no limitation on what duration you can pick for writing um, uh, uh, the water balance equation. All right, any questions?
No, sir.
All right, so now we are going to solve one small problem and try to understand. Okay,
Sir,
so are you able to?
sir, can you tell what is catchment area once again?
Okay, so catchment area is basically the area that contributes water to the outlet of that point. Okay, so for example, so if you think of, let us say I have a river over here flowing out at this point. Okay, at this point, all the water that flows out at this point, okay, is rainfall that has fallen inside this boundary, inside this blue boundary. Okay, suppose I have some rainfall falling over here. Okay, oops, sorry, that may not go to this point. It may go to some other river. Let us say there's another river over here. Okay, so if I have rainfall that falls over here, that rain may go towards this river. Okay, and then this river, it may have its own outlet. Okay, so every river has an outlet point, right? So for example, if you think of the Ganga, it originates in Uttarakhand in Gangotri, and then flows through Uttar Pradesh, it flows through Bihar, maybe it flows to Jharkhand also, I'm not sure. And then it flows into West Bengal, and then near Calcutta, it enters into the Bay of Bengal. Okay, after crossing Calcutta, right? So if you take that last point before it enters the Bay of Bengal as the outlet, okay, the entire watershed of the entire area that contributes water to that point includes every point upstream of that, right? So Uttarakhand is a part of that, is a catchment area for that point. UP is a catchment for that point. Madhya Pradesh is a catchment for that point. Bihar is a catchment for that point, and so on. You understand what I'm saying? So catchment is that area that contributes water to the outlet. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Sir, what is the area affected due to heavy water flow? Sir?
Due to what? Heavy?
Water flow. I mean, if river is flooding, then the area affected.
Okay, so okay, that's a slightly different. Okay, so now that's also very important. So maybe I'll draw a cross section over here. So what he's asking is, when a river gets flooded, let me erase some of this so that I can write over here. Okay, now so whatever I've drawn so far is a plan view. Okay, so what you saw in the previous slide, this is plan view. Now I'm going to draw a cross section view. Okay, so imagine Okay, so this is the river. Okay, so the river is flowing over here. This is at normal time when there is, the river is flowing at a safe level. Okay, usually what happens is when you have what do you say, a rainfall event and the river starts to flood, what will happen to the water level in the river? It will rise up. Okay, it may go up to this point. Okay, so it's supposed to be a straight line, but just assume it's a straight line. Okay, so the water level in the river rises. Okay, then if it rises even further, okay, then it may become something like this, right? So this area that the river floods when it is at its maximum. So again, if you read the news, it will say the Godavari is flowing over the danger mark, right? Or the in Bihar, the river Kosi is flowing over the danger mark. So what we do is we designate what is called a danger mark. If it goes above that, then it get into the city and so on. Okay, so this region that the river floods, whenever there is a flood, this region is called a floodplain. FLOOD PLAIN, floodplain. Okay, so on both sides of the river you have the floodplain. If you go to I don't know, if you visit the have you guys gone to that Polavaram Dam? Oh, that's okay. So you've just entered your third year. Usually at the end of your third year or in the middle of your third year, we go on a site visit to the Polavaram Dam, which is on the river Godavari. Okay, so when you go to that Polavaram site, you will notice, those of you who are from Rajamundry and around that area will know this. Next to the Godavari, there will be this high embankment. There will be a structure like this, right? So even if the water level comes up, it cannot go beyond this point. And then the village will be on the other side. So on both sides of the Godavari, you will have a very high, something like this. Maybe I'll draw it on a smaller scale. See, okay. And then the village will be over here. The houses and all will be on this side. This structure, it's what you call a bund sometimes, BUND, bund, or an embankment. Have you heard this in your soil mechanics class? Bunds and embankments. You had your soil mechanics class, right? Yeah. Yes, so this bund or embankment is basically intended to prevent the flooding of the river into the areas where human beings are typically habiting. Okay, so you will have on both sides. Those of you who are from the West Godavari or East Godavari, you might have seen this when you go near the Godavari. Okay, so and this you will see in almost most major rivers will have some kind of a bund or an embankment to prevent it from flooding the entire the village on both sides of the river. Okay, so this is called the floodplain. Does that answer your question? So that's what this is called. So the area that the river floods is called the floodplain. Okay, typically what is done is houses or any construction is not allowed on the floodplain, right? So they'll say within 100 meters of the river, no construction is allowed, or within 200 meters of the river, depending on the river, depending on the size of the river and so on. It is usually advisable to not construct too close to the river, because when the water level in the river rises during a flood, then you don't want to be in the floodplain. You want to be at least some distance away from the floodplain, so that these kinds of problems don't happen. So that again, that rule or the law varies from place to place. In some places it is within 100 meters, some places it might be 200 meters and so on. Okay, that area is called the floodplain. All right, so let us go to the problem. Are you able to read the problem statement?
Sure.
Is it clear? I'm a little concerned. Is the text clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us just quickly read the problem statement and go through the problem. Okay. A lake had a water surface elevation of 103.2 meters above datum at the beginning of a certain month. Okay. So see, usually these problems are very, you have to read carefully because there's a lot of detail inside the problem statement. So you have to read it carefully. A lake had some water surface elevation at the beginning of a certain month. In that month, the lake received an average inflow of 6 cubic meters per second from surface runoff sources. In the same period, the outflow from the lake had an average value of 6.5 cubic meters per second. Okay, in the same period, the outflow from the lake had an average value of 6.5 cubic meters per second. Okay. Further, in that month, the lake received a rainfall of 145 millimeters. Okay, and the evaporation from the lake surface was estimated as 6.1 centimeters. Okay, so now see, already you will notice that we've used so many different units. The first statement said 103.2 meters. Okay, then inflow of 6 cubic meters per second, outflow of 6.5 cubic meters per second. Then the rainfall is measured in millimeters, 145 millimeters, and the evaporation was estimated as 6.1 centimeters. Okay, so this is all done deliberately. So in the problem statement, you're given different pieces of information. Each of them has its different units. It is your job to convert them to the appropriate units and then use that information to solve the problem. Okay. So then next statement, write the water budget equation for the lake and calculate the water surface elevation of the lake at the end of the month. Okay. So it's a fairly straightforward problem. Okay. First of all, write the water budget equation for the lake and calculate the water surface elevation. So we'll come to the second part. Okay. So let us first write the water budget equation. Somebody wants to help me? Let's see who's Shwetu Shri. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can you tell me, let me first draw a lake. Okay, I'm going to draw the plan view of the lake. Oops, sorry. You have to tell me what are all the processes that you want to include in this. So let's assume this is the lake. Okay. So what is happening in this lake? Let's start from the first. The lake received an average inflow of 6 cubic meters per second. So what should I do now? Let's first draw it and then we'll write the equation.
Average rate of inflow of water in the lake.
Okay, so should I draw an arrow towards the lake or away from the lake? If it is inflow,
towards the lake.
Towards the lake. All right, very good. So I have some inflow coming into the lake at 6 cubic meters per second. Okay, next. Next sentence, right? In the same period, the outflow from the lake had an average value of 6.5 cubic meters per second. So let me just draw that. Okay, so there's some water leaving the lake at 6.5 cubic meters per second. All right, thank you. Let's call somebody else now. Deepak. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
good morning, sir.
Morning. So we've got the inflow and the outflow. What next?
Sir, addition of water due to this rain.
Okay, so that will be, let us say, okay, so this is precipitation equal to, how much is that? 145 millimeters.
Yes, sir.
Then?
Evaporation is also given 61 mm.
Okay, so what do I do? Away, inside?
Minus.
Minus, okay, so it will be an arrow going out of the lake equal to 61 mm. 6.1 centimeters, you've just converted it to millimeters. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's see who else can we catch? Nikhil.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we are ready to write the equation. Can you tell us what the equation should look like?
P minus E.
What is that?
P minus E. 145 mm minus 61
okay,
mm.
let's just write it as symbols. Then we'll worry about P minus E. Okay.
Plus inflow.
Plus inflow. Okay.
minus outflow
Okay.
is equals to storage.
Change in storage, delta S. Okay. So now, how do I write this equation in such a way that the units are all identical? P is in millimeters, E is in millimeters. Okay, no problem. I is in cubic meters per second. What do we do?
I meter square into second.
What is that?
Or meter square into second into velocity.
No. See, the difference is this: precipitation is given in terms of height
Millimeter.
of rainfall,
Yes.
right? So either you convert that into volume, or you convert this volume or volumetric rate, meter cube per second, into something that you can see. There are two things. There's meter cube per second. First of all, you have to remove that per second. How do you remove that?
Into time.
Into time. What is the time?
Month. 1 month.
1 month. All right. So everybody understands what we are saying. So let me, maybe I'll take it to the next slide because it's getting a little. Okay. I equal to 6 cubic meters per second. You can convert this to meter cube.
Then by area.
First you convert it to meter cube, and then you can divide it by the area. The area is also given. I think the next statement, 1 second, let's just go back. The average lake surface area can be taken as 5,000 hectares. Okay, now anybody knows how much a hectare is?
0.01 square kilometers.
0.01 square kilometers. Yeah, I think that's correct. So a hectare, okay, I remember it like this. 1 hectare equal to 10,000 square meters. Okay, that's what I remember. Okay, that's easier for me. So 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters. Okay, so you can convert this meter cube per second into meter cube, first of all, by multiplying it by the time, which is 1 month. So it is receiving 6 cubic meters per second for a whole month. So you'll convert that to meter cube by multiplying it by the time. 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours, 30 days. Okay, so then that will give you the volume of inflow received. Then you divide it by the area, which is 5,000 hectares. 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters. So you can do the conversion. You will get some number in meters. So something in meters. You can convert that to millimeters by multiplying by 1,000, whatever it is. Okay, so inflow will be in millimeter. It can be in meters, it could be in millimeters, no problem. Similarly, you will do it for the outflow. Outflow equal to, I think, 6.5 cubic meters per second. You will convert it to meter cube, and then you will divide it by area, and then you will get an answer in, let us say, millimeters. Okay, why don't you guys do this quickly? Come on. I'm assuming all of you have your calculators ready, and this is all very straightforward stuff. Okay, so anybody wants to give me the numbers? I'll call somebody else now. Who's B004? Who's roll number 4? Yeah, can you tell me your name? I've forgotten. I don't remember by roll number.
Sir, Apurv.
What is that?
Apurv.
Apurv. Okay, yeah.
So can you show the question again? I want to see the
Yeah,
area.
sure. 5,000 hectares. 5,000 hectares. Okay. So Apurv, come on. Can you give us some numbers? Okay, maybe I'll. So this delta S equal to P plus I minus E plus O. You can write it like that, right? So you can add up the positives and then add up the inflows and add up the outflows and then do it that way as well. So you'll get. So do you get a positive number or a negative number?
Positive.
Positive one.
Yeah. Can you? Okay. So anybody who has the answer, can you tell us the number?
2.9 megameter cube.
What is that?
2.9 into 10 power 6
Units.
meter cube.
2.9 into 10 power 6 meter cube. Oh, okay, sure, fine. So you okay? So see, I have no problem if you do it in meter cubes, right? But the question, I think it says, what is that? Calculate the water surface elevation of the lake at the end of the month. All right. So you've written the water budget equation. You solve it in whatever units you want. If you want to solve the whole thing in meters, you can solve it in meters. If you want to solve it in meter cube, you can solve it in meter cube. So if you solve it in meter cube, this is the answer that you get. All right. So if you were to solve it in meters, what would be the answer? Divide this thing by 5,000 into 10 power 4, right?
0.058.
0.058. Always say the units right after that.
Meters.
Meters, which means how many mm?
58.
58 mm. Okay. So even that is not the answer. The question that's asked is, what is the water surface elevation at the end of the month? Okay, so you have to know what the water surface, right? Calculate the water surface elevation at the end of the month. At the beginning of the month, it was 103.2 plus this 58 mm or 0.058 meters. So the answer will be 103.258 meters, I think, right? Yeah, and then of course it says assume that there is no contribution to or from the groundwater. Okay, so this lake is not connected to the groundwater. Typically, the lake will either provide water to the groundwater or it will take some water from the groundwater. In this particular, I should have mentioned it at the beginning. In this problem, we are assuming that this lake is completely disconnected from groundwater. Okay, anyway, so that's one small little problem that we have solved. I want to actually solve one more problem because I want you to appreciate the use of this this tool or this water budget equation to solve so many practical problems. Why is this taking so long? Oops. Okay, so I have one more problem. Let's just quickly try to solve that. So a small catchment of 150 hectares area. Okay, so I'll just write down here the details. A small catchment of area 150 hectares. You already know the conversion from hectares to meter square. Okay, a small catchment of 150 hectares area received rainfall of 10.5 centimeters in 90 minutes. Okay, rainfall equal to 10.5 centimeters in 90 minutes. Okay, at the outlet of the catchment. So the outlet, that's what I mentioned, right? The point at which the water in that catchment drains out, that's called the outlet. At the outlet of the catchment, the stream draining the catchment was dry before the storm. Okay, so I'll just draw this. So I have this is a catchment area, whatever it is. And there's a stream that's running out. Okay, so this is the outlet. So at the outlet of the catchment, the stream was dry before the storm. Okay, so before the storm started, the stream was completely dry. Okay, no water was leaving this catchment. Okay, but it experienced a runoff lasting for 10 hours. It experienced runoff lasting for 10 hours, runoff of 10 hours duration. Okay, with an average discharge of 1.5 cubic meters per second. 1.5 cubic meters per second. Okay, the stream was again dry after the runoff event, after the rainfall event. Okay, so it receives rainfall for 90 minutes equal to 10.5 centimeters, and for 10 hours there is runoff happening at an average rate of 1.5 cubic meters per second. Okay, so now the question is, what is the amount of water which was not available to run off due to the combined effect of infiltration, evaporation, and transpiration? Okay, so it says, what is the amount of water which was not available for runoff due to the combined effect of infiltration, evaporation, and transpiration? Is the question clear? I have some precipitation falling here, which causes some runoff at this point, right? If this entire catchment drains out all the rainwater that comes out, P must be equal to R, right? If P is not equal to R, right, either in terms of volume or in terms of whatever units you want to write it in, if P is not equal to R, okay, is everybody following along? If P and R are exactly equal, I receive 10 centimeters of rainfall and all of that rainfall becomes runoff, which means there was no infiltration, there was no evaporation, there was no transpiration, nothing. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Right? So if I were to write an equation for this catchment, the equation will look something like this: P minus E minus I, which is infiltration. I'm going to call it. Okay, I'll write it explicitly. You don't confuse it with inflow. Minus T minus R equal to 0. Why am I writing 0?
No runoff.
No storage.
There's no change in storage, right? Because it says at the beginning of the storm, the stream was dry. After 10 hours of runoff, the stream again becomes dry, which means all the runoff has happened and there's no storage happening. Okay, so some rainfall happened.
Sir, what is runoff, sir? Runoff.
Runoff is the water that runs off the surface of the land, right? So when water, you remember we spoke about this in the earlier lectures. So if I have land like this and rainfall falls on here, depending on the type of soil, depending on the slope, depending on the moisture conditions, depending on all other factors, some water may infiltrate, the rest of it will run off. So that's how we define. Okay, I think there was somebody post a question in the chat, I think. Sir, what is T? T is transpiration. T is transpiration, right? So if I have any trees and vegetation and crops that are in this area, in this catchment area, the water that leaves through the leaves of that of the vegetation inside this area, that's transpiration. Okay, so T is. Don't hesitate to ask these questions and don't ask them in the chat. Okay, fortunately I saw it this time. If I had not seen it, then I would have just kept going. Just unmute yourself and ask the question. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. So E is evaporation. I is infiltration. T is transpiration, which is the water that is leaving through the trees and the vegetation. Okay, and R is runoff. And I'm saying this, all of this is equal to 0. Now in the question, P is given, right? 10.5 centimeters in 90 minutes. R is given 1.5 cubic meters per second average runoff rate for 10 hours. So you can convert that to a volume, no problem, right? So then the question says, what is the amount of water which was not available for runoff due to the combined effect of infiltration, evaporation, and transpiration? The question is simply this: find out what this term is. You just have to find out this term. So you can simply take it to the other side and say P minus R equal to infiltration plus evaporation plus runoff. Right? Okay, so first let's compute the precipitation P. What is P?
105.
What is that? 10.5 centimeters.
Yeah, sir, I computed it in mm, like the answer of the question.
No, wait, that's okay, but we'll go step by step. You
Okay.
computed the precipitation, right? What was the precipitation?
Like P, I took it in mm, sir.
You directly took it in mm. Okay.
Yeah.
See now, this is a little bit difficult to understand. It's easier if you do it in cubic meters for this particular problem. I'm not saying it's incorrect to do it in millimeters. I'm saying it's easier for you to visualize. Okay. You received 10.5 centimeters of rain. Okay. Over an area of 150 hectares. You convert that to volume. You'll get some number. Right? Then you have the runoff, which is happening for 10 hours. You can compute what the runoff volume is total. You multiply that by the duration, 1.5 cubic meters per second into 60 seconds into 60 minutes into 10 hours. Right? You will get the runoff volume. Then directly you have the what is that? The precipitation volume, and you have the runoff volume. You can easily compute the difference between them, and that gives you the amount of precipitation that is not available to runoff, which means the combined effect of evaporation, infiltration, and transpiration. Can you please compute that? Can you tell me what the value of P is?
(1.57 into 10 power 3
to 10 power
meter cube).
To 10 power?
1.575 into 10 power 2 meter cube.
No, careful.
Into 10 power 5.
Is it like a lottery or something? You're trying different combinations.
No.
Yeah.
I forgot to divide.
Yeah. So P is 1. What is that? 1.57 something into 10 power 5 cubic
into
meters.
Yes.
Is this okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did we get this? You multiply 10.5 centimeters, convert it to meters, and then multiply it by 150 hectares, convert that to meter square. Okay. So basically this is 150 into 10 power 4 meter square into 10.5 divided by 100 meters. That's what this is. Correct? All right. So you've got this number P equal to 1.57 into 10 power 5 meter cube. Now runoff R equal to, that's easy. 1.5 cubic meters per second into 60 seconds, that is 1 minute, into 60 minutes, that's 1 hour, into 10, that's 10 hours. Right? So you do that, you will get, I think you should get something like 54,000 cubic meters. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what is the combined effect of infiltration, evaporation, and transpiration? P minus R. Right? This entire thing, you can compute them totally. We are not interested in finding out what the individual components are. We are only interested in finding out what the combined effect of all of that is. And I think the combined effect will come to something like, so E plus I plus T equal to, how much is it? It will be about
1.035 into 10 power 5 meter cube.
Okay. So E plus I plus T is about 1 into 10 power 5, 1 lakh cubic meters of what is that, runoff is prevented because of the impact of evaporation, infiltration, and transpiration. All right. Okay. So the next topic is going to be about precipitation, but I think we are out of time. Okay. So any questions today? No questions?
No, sir.
All right. So we will meet tomorrow at 11. Yes.
Sir, in some places, why the catchment area around lakes is not allowed for construction?
Same story, na? Even in the lake, when there's a flood inside the lake, when there's a lot of water flowing into the lake, the water level in the lake will rise. So if you construct around that area, you may end up flooding your houses and so on. And the other thing is, sometimes these lakes can also have some a rare species living, which depend on that lake. So if you start constructing around that area, that that biodiversity might get affected, right? So typically the law is, I think it's 500 meters if it's a very sensitive zone, then within 500 meters you can't do any construction. Okay. Of course the laws are different from state to state, but I think especially for wetlands, I think it's 500 meters. Lakes and wetlands, it might be 500 meters. All right. Thank you. Yeah. So those who want to leave can leave, because it's you have the next class to attend. Any questions?
Sir, does the catchment area change with time?
Usually no, but it's possible. It's not impossible. Especially, let us say, if you start destroying mountains. See, the mountain prevents water from flowing across it, right? So if I have a mountain, any water that falls on this side of the mountain will go to this catchment, and water that falls on the other side of the mountain will go to the other catchment, right? So the mountain or any kind of ridge is a natural divide which becomes the boundary of the catchment. But sometimes, especially if you go from Chennai to Tirupati, for example, I've driven on that road multiple times. Mountains, people are just quarrying those mountains and removing granite and whatever for their construction purposes. So even the mountain itself is changing. So the mountain used to be 300 feet tall, and then if you go 3 months later, it has suddenly become 200 feet tall, because in the meanwhile people are mining away stuff and so on. So that can happen, but that may be local changes. But if you're looking at a large area, usually the catchment area doesn't change with time. Okay.
Okay.
We'll talk more. You can contact me later also if you want, because the next class is about to start. I don't want to delay that. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye bye.